What's up, guys? We're just wrapping up the anti-roll bar install and gonna show you a little bit what we're dealing with here. You can see the end links are pretty long. You see them this long sometimes on chassis cars, like full tube chassis cars, depending on where the anti-roll bar is placed. But on this car, we felt like this was the best solution, because whenever we stepped the anti-roll bar back, that's shortening the distance that this arm, or not really shortening it, but pulling this arm away from where it would normally hook, which is right in here. So your links are going to be laid out flat like this, and you're really going to be limited on how far it lets the rear end droop before you run out of arm length. So best solution to not have to worry about that is to attach the links back here directly under the frame rail. Now, we was going to put a bar across here, that's why we plated this yesterday, but after realizing that the arms of the bar are pretty much dead in line with the edge of the frame, there's really no point to put a bar across here when we can just tab it directly to that plate. Because if you put a bar there, you wouldn't be able to get the bolt in it, or you'd have to just rotate the tabs up and attach to the bar, and it's going to be right against the plate anyway. So there's really no point to have the bar and the extra clearance you're going to have to worry about with the wishbone moving up and down. So we're cutting the tabs for this one right now. We've got that one tacked in, and once we get those welded up, the anti-roll bar will be complete, and then we're going to start on our next project, which I'll explain to you here in a minute. So the next project we're going to tackle on Grubbworm is the lower control arm connection brackets on the chassis. Most of you know with the FBODY you only have one hole, as I guess all OEM chassis, you only have one connection point there, so there's no adjustability in the front. But with the racecraft rear end, you have the rear end brackets that have, I think, 4 or 5 holes on this particular rear end. Well, even when you put it in the very bottom hole, with lowering the car down at ride height where he wants it, he's losing bar angle because of that. So the only way to get that bar angle back is to go even lower on the rear, or to come higher in the front. Well, unfortunately, with where the brackets are on the rear end, if they go down lower, then it's going to get really close to the tire, because it's not really narrowed that much, and with the wider wheel he's running, it's going to be really tight. So Matt up at Tick, he's got a 3rd gen Camaro. He's been working on a little side project here about making adjustable brackets to go up in the chassis of his 3rd gen. Well, 3rd gens, 4th gens, they're pretty close up underneath there, so we're going to try them out on Grubbworm and be, I guess, the first to install a set, because he's not actually installed a set yet. It's just kind of an idea in the works right now. So here they are. Some of you might have seen me share them on social media. He brought us the pieces that were already kind of tacked together, kind of the way they were supposed to be, so we could see how they went. So we busted them apart and had Cody weld those scallop pieces in there. So the way this works is, yeah, that's the passenger side. The way this works, it goes up in there like that. Well, because the inside, unless you cut out everything and bring it up into the car, you're not going to be able to get to the inside to put a nut or anything on there. So you don't have to use a nut. You just put the bolt in there, and then it threads in to the other side from the outside. So this prevents you from having to chop a lot of your structure away that you're going to be welding back to, because you're not going to need to get up into this side. You're just going to have to get to one side here. So we're going to get these in there and try them out. This is going to give you, I think, 3 holes above where the factory one, I think the factory one ends up being the second hole from the bottom. So this is going to give you 3 more holes of adjustability up into the car to hopefully achieve that bar angle that he once had, if not a little bit more. So excited to get these in. This will be the, I guess, the first ones that I've ever seen. If they work great, yes, it probably will be a product, as Matt, I think he said he machined about 10 sets of them because he was really hopeful that they were going to work out great. So I think they will. They're a great design, really rigid. They weld together really nice. So we're gonna go over here and start chopping it out and see if we can get them in. But let's take a look at the anti-roll bar and stuff. We got all that painted up and everything's reinstalled, so let's check that out first. You can see we give everything a good rattle can to freshen it up. We've not really tightened any of this stuff up. It's just kind of mocked up in position now, but I think it turned out really nice. You can see how the end links are at full droop. So when it is at ride height, these will be pretty much level. The reason why we can't make them level at full droop is because it'll be plowing the ground. This is your lowest point on the car, and just with how much extension this car is going to have, you can't really set these level without them going way down here whenever you set the car down. So yeah, the only thing left we really got to do back here is put the rear, I guess, valance, or the piece that Jared made. We got to rivet it back in and get that back in place. And then obviously we're going to be cutting the brackets and stuff up in here, which once we get the lower control arms off, I'll show you how those go in, and we'll continue the video then. So before we start cutting anything out, just wanted to show you the bracket kind of mocked up in place. I've took the lower control arm off, and I took the bolt out, and I used a shorter bolt with some spacers because we don't have the right length, but to come in from the inside on the factory bolt location. This kind of holds the bracket in place. You can see, well, need a light here where you can see better. You can see it's all the way up to the top, and the way it's tapered at the top kind of matches the contour of the body. And we're going to remove, see if I can hold the light between my legs here. We're going to remove this outside portion up to right here and then down. This will expose your access to the bracket to put the bolt in your different locations, and then we will box this back in at the bottom and then weld all the way around the inside, and then weld the top as well, and just reinforce it whatever it needs by taking this back out. So that's a pretty good way to mock it up. Just use the factory hole. Again, this is going to give you 2 holes above the factory location and then 2 holes below as well. I don't know why you would really need to use these, but they're there. just to be there, I guess. So we'll start cutting this thing out. Yeah, what you feel. So you can see we've got both sides cut out. You only have to cut the outside of this OEM bracket off. You'll have to cut a little clearance area up in here so you can access the top bolt hole and get the bolt in and out. But I'll show you. This side is mocked up, ready to weld. I actually just use some spacers and use the OEM hole to hold it in place. Make sure the top is pushed all the way against the bottom of the body. A little control on the way there. So what I'm going to do now is weld along the outside there so it'll hold it in place. Come in here and weld all that I can reach to the bottom of the body there. And then this is where some subframes used to be on this car that were cut off, but we're going to box all of this in with 1/8" plate all the way around, and then we're also going to weld it all the way around here. Basically just close it in as strong as you can around that area. All right, everything is welded in and complete. Let's check it out. I'm pretty excited at the way they came out, to tell you the truth. I've always, well, ever since we started Jonathan's The Ripper project over there, I'd actually had Eric at Midwest Chassis send me some brackets off of their rear end to put in the front. You can see on his car, we did pretty much the same thing as what Matt has designed here to go in the OEM chassis. But super thrilled with how they came out. I think they're tied in way stronger than the factory ones ever was. But you can see, just going over the details, I welded all the way across the top, all the way down, all the way around. And then of course any of the gap spots we boxed in with 1/8 inch steel. Had to get the MIG right here because that part where it radiuses over is a pretty big gap, and so it's just easier just to fill that in with the MIG gun. But all this other stuff fits nice and tight, so nice TIG welds all down through all of that. And then we welded it under here at the backside. Remember, this is leftover plating from an old subframe connector that used to be on this car that we just have left on there all these years. So basically the goal is to get it boxed in as much as you can in that area, and that is definitely going to be a lot stronger than it was stock, as well as have all the adjustment obviously being the goal. So Matt's talking about coming out with these. He machined a bunch of them, so this was like the trial run as far as installing a set and seeing how they're going to go in the chassis. So I think we have a winner here, so look for this to be probably a product that TIC comes out with really soon. And what better way to promote your product than to put it on the fastest GM stick shift car out there, and a car, you know, even if it wasn't any of that, a car running 6s in the quarter. So this is the ultimate test of the durability and stuff and how the product performs. So let's just go over one more time everything we've done under this thing before I wrap up the chassis updates video. Well, I think I'll throw some paint on that stuff and hook up the lower control arms and show you everything put together to end out the video. So hold that thought. So now that I got paint on everything and everything looks good and everything's buttoned up, for the exception of this panel in the back so I can show you everything, we're going to go front to back and go over everything we've done as far as the chassis updates for Grubbworm. So starting at the back, took this sheet metal off. It's going to go back on all but the top part because we ditched the panhard bar, upgraded to a wishbone. This is the Hammer Concepts and Designs wishbone kit using the big 1 3/8 70-75 slider with the Delrin bushings. There's a separate video on that if you want to check out the assembly of that. Really nice piece. The anti-roll bar started out, it was supposed to bolt to the rear. We had to get offset plates, step it to the back so it would clear the rear. And in doing that, the arms was really too short to make it to the front and not cause issues with not being able to separate enough, tying it into the front part like it normally would. So we opted to do longer links and go all the way to the side of the frame. It's a better shot, a straighter shot, and it was just a better choice there. And I don't think I've showed these since I've painted them and everything, but there they are. You can see how the tubing is kind of tied in. This is what we did on the chassis before, and I know this is repetitious. I'm just going over all of it. That's the original parachute mount that was on the car. You got tubes welded to it. It's bolted to the end of the original frame rails. And then you got an 1 3/4 straight tube going across that the wishbone ties to. And it boxes it all in really good, makes it really strong. I'll just carry this light with me. So moving forward, what we just videoed, now they got paint on them. Like I said, I think those are really going to be a nice product to offer, because nobody has anything out there that's adjustable for the front on the F-bodies, and that was a really easy install compared to what I've seen the Mustang guys go through with installing theirs. We cut a little bit of that out where it gets really close to the tire. Kind of welded it, the seam back shut, threw some paint on it just to open up some clearance. We cut the original panhard bar attachment box off. Moving on, there used to be a cross member right here under the torque arm. That is gone now, and we have adapted those tubes back, put tubes going up to the roll cage from those tubes, because he uses these tubes here and here for the Pro Jack to go across here to jack the car up. We also did our torque arm clearance panel, which everything's really dusty right now. We've been working like crazy, but you can kind of see how that opens all that area up just a ton, so you can get the car dropped down. Kind of show you up in there. That way the bar is not coming up through the floor inside the car anymore. So talking about the torque arm, a few videos back, we did the torque arm cross member with integrated drive shaft loop. A lot beefier setup. So welded back to the floor here for extra strength. It's also welded up into the tunnel on the inside of the car. So tie it in everywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. So that's it. That is your full chassis updates for Grubbworm for 2022. Really hope he sees some good results switching to this stuff. Most of you guys know his old setup was very, very primitive. Had like a OEM style sway bar on it. With the panhard bar, the rear end was moving around a little bit too much with how much he was trying to separate on the passes or get the suspension to separate. So wishbone will fix that. Stiffer anti-roll bar will keep the car a lot more flat, which the other one did a pretty good job. I was really surprised. And now he's got this nice rear end, so it hopefully won't be bending and flexing around like the other one was. So now it's time to move to the front of the car. We've got a turbo kit to build out of 321 stainless. We've got some new goodies to go on it. We've got a bigger fuel cell to do, which that is done at laser cutting. I'm going to pick up that Monday morning first thing and go ahead and get that together so we can get that off to get it Teflon coated, and get it back in the car by the end of the week after the turbo kit and stuff's done. So, hope you've enjoyed all the updates. Hope you've learned something. We always learn something whenever we do something new, and we've done a couple new things on this car that I've not personally done on an FBODY. So, always learning, and it's been fun. So, thanks you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with the stuff on Grubbworm, because it's always here getting something. See you guys.